Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Blackhawks Roundtable presented by the Hockey Writers. I'm your host, Brooke LoFurno, joined by my colleagues, Hunter Crowther and Gail Kauchak. We said we wanted a better week last week, and we did get a better week. So we actually have some fun things to talk about. I'm excited to kind of dissect everything with you guys today. The Blackhawks earned 5 out of a possible 8 points this past week. They took the Nashville Predators to a shootout, but unfortunately they lost 4-3. But hey, they got a point out of that game. They don't do well against Nashville, so we'll take it. They then shut out the Anaheim Ducks 1-0 and beat the St. Louis Blues 2 nights later 3-1. Unfortunately, last night's game was kind of a bummer when they lost 4-1 to the Washington Capitals, but that was kind of a tough back-to-back with St. Louis and Washington. So like I said, it was a better week, but obviously some low points, but a lot of high points too, these last 4 games. So we're kind of excited to talk about everything. But before we get into that, please be sure to follow me, Hunter, and Gail on Twitter. That's where we're the most active. We live tweet all the games, and that's where you can find usually where we post all of our articles. You could also find all of our articles at thehockeywriters.com. And please be sure to subscribe to the Hockey Writers Substack. If you're interested, you can get all of our content on the Hockey Writers right to your email for any team you wish to subscribe to, whether it's our team, the Blackhawks, the Oilers, the Maple Leafs. Really, you don't want to miss any of this content. And also, we have an option for premium content for the Blackhawks if you're interested, where we have quizzes, roster updates, a lot of fun stuff we're doing with that if you're interested in even more Blackhawks content. So the link for that will be in the description below if you're interested in that. And you can find our Twitter usernames on the screen. Okay, now let's get into everything because, like I said, we're excited to kind of just get right into this. So, like I said, better week. And one of the kind of high points, I think, of the Blackhawks team right now is Alex Vlasic-Louis Crevier. Obviously, Vlasic's been one of the best defensemen since the season started. And then obviously Louis Crevier was recalled from Rockford when they initially sent down Wyatt Kaiser and Isaac Phillips, but he's actually done really well in a really short sample size as well. And they actually paired them together because they did play together in Rockford. It's a very tall pairing. Alex Vlasic 6'6", Louis Crevier 6'8". It's a very, very tall pairing, but they've done really well, I think. And I think we're all pretty impressed with what they've brought so far. So let's just get right into this. What are your kind of thoughts about this whole Vlasic and Crevier pairing? Are you really into it? Do you like it? What have you seen? Hunter, I'm going to start with you here.
I think they've looked pretty solid. I think that Richardson's doing a good job of putting them out against second and third lines and allowing them to take competition that I think they can more than handle. I think there's a benefit too to just having two defensemen who are like that damn big. Honestly,
Uh-huh.
just having that much reach and being able to cover that much ice. Even though the game is faster and it might be less physical, you can't coach size, and I know that Richardson's a guy who probably likes having a little bit of an old school blue line to him.
Mhm.
Even though like this pair isn't exactly physical, they've been pretty responsible in their own end, and especially like we've enjoyed watching Vlasic through this year. But
Mhm.
I really think that like Crevier's been he's been handling his own. Like he's been able to handle like a third pair shift, and just overall like every night I'm not seeing that many mistakes from the two.
Yeah, Gail, what do you think of the Crevier Vlasic pairing so far?
Well, what I'd like to mention, one thing that Hunter reminded me is that even though they're big, they definitely are pretty decent skaters for their size. So both of them, so that's pretty good. And I just think it's really neat that that Vlasic is basically being tasked with like kind of ushering Crevier in. Like you said, they were partners in Rockford, but right, that's the coaching staff like totally trusts Vlasic, and it's his first year too, so that's great. Crevier registered his first NHL point in his third NHL game, and that was a primary assistant. It was Vlasic's first goal of the season, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think you guys nailed it on the head. Usually with big defensemen, the problem with that is usually they don't skate very well. And it's usually very hit or miss. It's very hard to find, that kind of good skating with size. So, and the fact that they do skate really well for their size is a big plus. And like I said, that's hard to find. And I just really like this pairing because they don't stand out. I mean, they stand out because of their height, but they really don't stand out. Usually, if you're noticing mistakes, it's usually from someone else. It's usually not from them. So like Crevier has only played in a couple games, and I honestly can say I've not noticed him, and I'm saying that in the best way possible because it usually means they're making mistakes if they're standing out. So you know what? I think good for them because Crevier was kind of a wild card, being a 7th-round pick and kind of not knowing if he had a spot in the future. And I mean, jury's still out. It's a small sample size, and there's a lot of defense prospects. But right now, it's been fun to watch, and they're not the problem on defense. So I'm really just happy for both of them because they seem like such good guys. I think, yeah, like Vlasic said, everyone calls Crevier Sweet Lou because he's so nice. And Vlasic seems like the nicest guy, too. So honestly, you like to see good guys get rewarded, too. So good for them. Honestly, good for them because being a defenseman on the Blackhawks is not very easy right now, especially in a rebuild, but they're holding their own. So, you know what? We're going to keep having fun with that. So, we're excited to keep watching them. I don't know how much longer Crevier is going to be up. We'll see about that, but either way, happy to see them do what they do right now. Okay, so the next thing we got to talk about is Jason Dickinson because, guys, Jason Dickinson, who had him, like, on your bingo sheet for like being one of the top scorers on the Blackhawks this year? I think we all thought he had potential, but I didn't think we thought it was going to be on this level that he already broke his career high of 9 goals in a season. So yeah, he's had a really good year, and I think he's opening a lot of eyes, not just on the Blackhawks, but even around the league so far, even though this is his 9th year. But either way, I think we're all just like surprised in the best way, and we're excited about what we're seeing from Jason Dickinson. So what do you make of Jason Dickinson's contribution so far on offense? Gail, I'm going to start with you here.
Yeah, he scored 2 of the last 4 games. So this past week, since we last met, two goals. Like you said, he's currently up to 9 goals on the season, which ties his career high. And it's only December, you guys. So you know that more goals are going to come. So, right, career high for him. The cool thing about Dickinson is that he really isn't known for his scoring. He's a defensive depth forward, defensive minded. And so it's really great to see him stepping up as a veteran, stepping up and scoring and, contributing to the team, especially since they're kind of struggling in that department right now. Currently playing on 3rd line. He's winning his faceoffs in, again, these last 4 games, 58% pace. He's, I think, like a 48% pace or something like for season wide. So he's holding his own there. And there's just a lot to like about Dickinson's game right now. So especially since, right, he was acquired by the Canucks for a 2nd-round pick, and Dickinson was basically a salary dump for them that the Canucks were willing to take on. 28-year-old, he could really fetch a nice return at the trade deadline, or maybe even he would be somebody that you could re-sign, the Blackhawks could re-sign for next season.
Yeah, it's really hard to find fault in his game right now. I think 14 points in 27 games, 9 goals is a +5. I mean, there really is. It's hard to fault his game right now. Hunter, what do you make of Jason Dickinson's contributions?
It's funny that like in the first game of the season, he had a goal and assist. And then I have it here. He didn't get a point for the next 8 games. So this offensive burst has really popped out through November, and as we bleed into December, 12 points in his last 18 games, 7 goals in his last 11. Like you said, we're tying career highs. He's going to eclipse it and probably blow it out of the water. He's in the last year of a 3-year deal that he signed in Vancouver, or he's making $2.65 a year. That's probably going to go up, even if his numbers kind of, let's say he only scored 9 more goals the rest of the season. Being close to a 20 goal guy in the league, that can get you like close to 4 million in today's NHL. I'd be curious what they do, because I'm sure that there is some value, and I'm sure teams around the league are going to look for depth scoring, because we saw with Vegas last season, you need 4 lines of consistent scoring to win a cup. But I'd almost be curious if Chicago decides to retain him or re-sign him to something, because even though it's a rebuild and you want to trade assets that you can build for the future, you still got to have players who can play in the NHL. And I'd just be curious if they'd want to, even if it's for a short term of a 2-3 year deal, maybe overpay him just so he can be here through this rebuild.
Yeah, I honestly think we'll probably talk about this later on. We can probably debate more about whether the Hawks should keep him or trade him, assuming that he keeps up this hot streak, and that makes this decision a lot more difficult. Because I think, honestly, right now it could go either way. But like I said, it's not till March. The trade deadline's not till March. So like I said, I think we have some time. But right now, I think we're just enjoying having him on the team. I mean, I I really do think a lot of this has to do with him being very comfortable in a bottom six role, which he talked about during the start of the season. Although they did use him on the second line for a little bit, but still, he mentioned earlier this season that he's more comfortable on the bottom six. That's where his skill set lies. That's where he feels his best. And it shows. Him and Nick Foligno and Joey Anderson have been just dynamite. So I think a lot of it has to do with being comfortable too. And honestly, like I said, I have a hard time faulting his game. And it's fun now watching him score because now when he scores, we're like, oh, it's Jason Dickinson. Again, like now it's like fun. Like if it's like you would expect Connor Bedard to score, now we're like, oh, it's Jason Dickinson. Of course it is, because he's just been on fire. So I think that's been just fun. And yeah, like I said, I think we'll debate that, I think, as the season goes on, what to do about him. But right now, I think we're just enjoying watching him on the Blackhawks because he has been a very steady presence on and off the ice, I think, for the locker room too. Okay, so the next guy who's been really on fire lately, and honestly, guys, I feel like I have to bite my words here because I feel like I just did not talk very well about Petr Mrazek before the season. I just really didn't have very much high expectations because of the fact that he has been inconsistent, and he is proving me wrong, and I am just very happy about that. I'm very happy to be proven wrong, and I'm very sorry, Petr Mrazek. But honestly, he's looking really strong right now. I mean, I'm actually kind of upset that he could have had a back-to-back shutout. But you know what? We'll take what we can get here. He had a shutout for like the first time in 2 years. And honestly, whenever the Blackhawks lose, it's not due to him. I really can't recall a time this season where I thought, ooh, Petr Mrazek just looked really bad. I think it might have been Arizona, maybe against the Arizona Coyotes. But hey, that was in October. So, you know what? We'll take it. So let's talk about Petr Mrazek here a little bit. Do you think that the Blackhawks should re-sign Petr Mrazek? Hunter, I'm going to start with you.
I've been kind of back and forth on this, and I think going into the show today, and my answer will probably change next week and then maybe the week after that. But at the time being, I think you should trade him because if you've looked around the NHL or if you're watching other games, there's a lot of bad goaltending right now. There's a lot of teams that are not getting saves. You could argue that Edmonton and Minnesota fired their coaches because they weren't getting good goaltending. And the thing that I'm curious about, I looked it up, the trade deadline is going to be March 8th. And I'm curious if Kyle Davidson's going to decide, do I wait throughout like the season right up to the deadline for a trade? Or is there going to be a team that's so desperate to pick someone up that they'll overpay and they'll give you something that will make your eyeballs pop out of your head, and they'll decide, you know what, let's pull the trigger now and see what other kind of goaltending we have in the organization. Mrazek 7-8 this season on this team is pretty good. A .912 save percentage, which is better than all but 5 teams across the league. 75 of 76 saves between the Ducks and the Blues. Like I said, I wish that if they were in a better position, I'd say lock them up right now, but I think there's more value in moving on him, and judging by the rest of the league, you might fetch a really hefty return.
Do you know what? That's a very interesting point you made about the trade deadline, because I think we noticed, even from like Marc-Andre Fleury and even Robin Leonard, that we thought that teams might overpay for goaltending at the trade deadline. And it turns out they really didn't.
No,
so you're right. I do think that maybe if they do decide they want to move on from Petr Mrazek, I think it might be earlier than the trade deadline, because for some reason it doesn't seem like they garner as much of a big return as you would think. But maybe that would change this year. I don't know. But like I said, maybe Petr Mrazek being on the trade block is something we'll talk about more too, because like I said, that could go either way as well. Gail, what do you think about kind of Petr Mrazek? Would you re-sign him?
Well, it's funny because I was just thinking when you were talking that, last year Alex Stalock was kind of the sweetheart. He was the goalie sweetheart. And that's why, Petr Mrazek was kind of put in the background. And I know that, he has had a lot of health problems, Mrazek has. And I know that he changed his workouts and his regimen in the offseason to try to remedy that. It appears that he has, and he's healthy. And that's really cool that he's locked in and doing well. This is a rebuilding season though. So I'm going to go off on a tangent here and say, I still really kind of think that you want to give Soderblom his time as well. I would stick with a 50-50 rotation for them, but I'll tell you what, I do feel better with Mrazek in that I could see them getting rid of him at the trade line, but a lot of times goalies aren't really traded at the deadline. So I don't know. Again, I just feel like he could be somebody else that you could re-sign. And you know, he's a known entity for the team. He's a good mentor, a good teammate. He could help the young goalies along, whoever that might be. I would almost look at that option.
I would too. And like I said, I'm with Hunter. Like my answer probably right now, it will be different next week and probably up until the trade deadline. But I'm thinking if they do re-sign him, I probably re-sign him to 1 year. Probably just re-sign him to 1 year, especially because I think they might want to give Drew Commesso a little bit more conditioning and Rockford and stuff. But especially if they think that Soderblom might need a little more support in net and they think it works, and I probably do 1 more year on him if he's comfortable with that. That would probably be my thing. But like I said, unless you're really blown away by a trade offer for a goalie right now, yeah, he might be an option, I think, to keep around. I don't see the harm in that at all. But like I said, maybe something happens and we're thinking differently, and we're like, maybe they have to move him. But yeah, right now, yeah, you can make a solid case, I think, either way. But my point is, I think if we were to re-sign him, I go 1 year probably, and then maybe turn the reins over to Soderblom or Commesso, something like that. But either way, really good season from him. So I guess to kind of keep on the Mrazek kind of train here, because obviously they have been kind of switching off between him and Soderblom, which we talked about even last week. Do you think the Blackhawks should run with Mrazek in net for the next few games? Like obviously they did Soderblom against Washington because that was a back-to-back, but what do you think there, Hunter?
I think that if it keeps going the way it is, where Mrazek's playing well and Soderblom's he's not necessarily terrible. It's just that I feel like there's some inconsistency. And maybe ride the hot hand a little bit, because you get to showcase him to the rest of the league and say, hey, what's going on? Hey, this guy's pretty good. Eh? You're playing Edmonton tomorrow. Maybe Mrazek stops 38 of 39 shots against the Oilers, and all of a sudden they think, you know what, man, we could probably use that Petr Mrazek guy. That guy's pretty good. So, but that's just me selfishly trying to exploit an asset to show the rest of the team how valuable they are. But at the same time, though, like, don't take away starts from Soderblom. I don't think that they're in a position to ride the hot hand. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, they might leave him in Edmonton. If he impresses so much, they might leave him there. If Edmonton's like, hey, we can't wait anymore. We need a goalie. Let's do this. But Gail, what do you think? Do you think they should ride with Mrazek the next few games? Do you want to stick with kind of the tandem they've been doing right now?
I just feel like, oh my gosh, I hope we're not jinxing it. Like, right? We're like, oh, he's healthy.
I know.
He gets hurt.
We are ruining.
I know.
Yeah.
But like I already mentioned, I still think that Soderblom, unfortunately, you know, it's the rebound control that worries me with him. Like you said, the inconsistencies. But again, it's a rebuilding year, so I really think they should stick with the rotation with the two of them.
Yeah, I'm with you guys too. I feel like if they were in a playoff position or something, then you're talking something different. Then it's like you have to ride the hot hand, right? You have to go with what's working. But at this point, I know Mrazek has struggled, or not Mrazek, Soderblom, but you have to let him figure it out. I'm still on this train of you got to let him figure it out. This is really his first season, and right now everyone on this team has to figure it out. That's literally, I think, what the team's motto is this year. Figure it out. It's a rebuild. That's what you do. And we talk about the same thing with Lukas Reichel. Like, he's got to figure it out. Same thing with Soderblom. So I obviously, play Mrazek, but you got to give, I think, Arvid Soderblom his playing time too. You got to kind of let him work through the kinks here, and hopefully things improving. Yeah, I'm with you guys. I hope by the next time we talk next week, we're not like, oh my gosh, Mrazek and Soderblom played terrible last week. Oh my gosh, but I don't think so. I think they're fine. But yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it too. Stick with the rotation. It seems like, to be honest, it works the way it does. So why switch it up?
Yeah.
So the last topic we got to talk about is Boris Katchouk, because he was placed on waivers today, which I think none of us maybe were surprised by this, because he was healthy scratched 10 times this year, hasn't played in the last 4 games. I think they're pretty content with their bottom 6 as is. So it's kind of like a good opportunity maybe for him to hopefully find a home somewhere else. Probably benefits both sides rather than just riding him on the bench if they know they just don't want to play him, right? Even though the Blackhawks said they don't expect him to be picked up on waivers, they kind of expect that he'll just get more playing time in Rockford, which either way, playing time is playing time for him, better than just sitting on the bench. So, and then in the other roster news, they did call up Philip Roos from Rockford, defenseman, after Jared Tenorti was placed on IR for concussion protocol. So obviously we got to talk about Boris Katchouk here. What are your kind of thoughts on Boris Katchouk being placed on waivers? Do you agree with it? Do you disagree with that? How do you feel about it? Gail, I'm going to start with you.
Well, per Scott Powers of The Athletic, he basically said that Joey Anderson and Cole Gutman have moved ahead of Katchouk on the depth chart.
Mhm.
So good for them, right?
Mhm.
And there's, obviously a lot of depth. You've got Mackenzie Entwistle and Reese Johnson that are still in the mix. All of them, I really do feel kind of have more to bring to the table than Katchouk. So best man wins,
Yeah, part of the business, right? It's just,
Yeah.
next man up, Hunter, how do you feel about Boris Katchouk being on waivers?
I don't really feel a ton. I just think these things happen. Guys take over spots in the depth chart. I think anytime you've been healthy scratched over a dozen times and we're not even at the Christmas part of the season yet, it's either time to go to another team or just go to the minors. And there's nothing wrong with getting more ice time and maybe showcasing yourself for someone else around the league.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm with you. I said on Twitter that I was disappointed because he was a hardworking player. In the games he did play, he was really hardworking and really noticeable. I'm saying it more on the sense of I'm disappointed that in that case, but I'm with the Blackhawks on the fact that yes, I do think Cole Gutman and Joey Anderson are above him in that sense, and that makes sense to me. So I'm disappointed for him that he hasn't gotten the playing time, that it didn't work out in the trade. But like I said, I do think he has a home in the NHL somewhere. It's just not the Blackhawks. And like I said, this probably is the best move for him. If he's not playing, allow him to play somewhere else or allow him to play in Rockford. So yeah, I think it works out, I think, for both sides in that sense. Yeah, like I said, he was replaceable. He was a replaceable forward at the end of the day. But you never like to your players. It's sad. It's sad either way, I guess, when any player kind of gets cut in that way. Okay, so now we are going to the shootout portion of the show where we do quick fire questions and answers. So are you guys ready for this?
Bring it.
Yeah.
Okay, question number 1. So we're actually excited about this because Pat Boyle, Kaylee Chelios, and John Scott played a game with some shootout questions of their own during a pregame. So we thought it would be fun to answer some of them. So we got 2 of them, and then we'll use the rest of them later. But okay, so let's kind of give our take on these questions that they used. So question number 1, the most impressive defenseman this year has been Gail.
I got to go with Alex Vlasic.
Hunter.
Most impressive for me is Kevin Korchinski.
Oh, okay. So both. Do you know what? I'll go different here because I agree with both of you guys, and I think you're right there. And that's who I would have picked as well. But I'll go Seth Jones, as I think he's played a lot better the last few games. He had the most shots on goal of any defenseman last game, and I think he's close to his first goal of the season. I think he's actually done pretty well.
I'll say one thing. I don't think Korchinski's the best defenseman. I think he's impressed me the most just because I didn't expect him to enter the league so seamlessly. That's all I'm saying.
Well, hopefully he's he's not around for a family matter. I think he's missed the last 2 games, so hopefully he'll be back soon.
Right. Yeah, we really hope for the best for Kevin and his family. Hope everything's okay there. But you're right, Hunter. I think he's been really, really impressive. I think we love talking about him too and watching him play. But okay, so the next question. Besides his shot, Connor Bedard's what has stood out to you? Hunter?
His hockey IQ. It's already like he's a 10-year vet. He makes little passes that, we always talk about his shot. His passing is like someone who's been in the league for 10 years. It blows my mind every single night, the little things he does.
Yeah, I think we're all blown away by that. Gail, what about you?
I am going to go with his maturity that has stood out to me. As an 18-year-old, he is handling everything so well.
Yeah. He's got so much kind of thrown at him right now with all the attention and kind of everything the past month. And you're right, that maturity is really just awesome. I can't really say enough about him in that sense. I'm going to go with consistency. Because usually with rookies, I think they expected him to be a pretty consistent player, but usually with rookies, it can kind of be hit or miss. Sometimes they go through hot or cold streaks, but he's been very consistent. He's been almost like a point per game player. At this point, you just expect that that's going to happen. So I think his consistency, I think, has really impressed me. Okay. So this is a question that I honestly love. So the Blackhawks, as we talked about, went to the shootout against the Nashville Predators on December 5th. Obviously, Connor Bedard was the first shooter, and he got the goal. But Tyler Johnson was kind of a weird pick as the second shooter by Luke Richardson. He didn't score. So who would you pick as your second shooter in the shootout after Bedard? I know scoring is scarce on this team. It's a hard choice, but Gail, who would you have picked?
I think in that situation, I would have gone with Jason Dickinson just because he's been so hot lately.
Not a bad choice. Hunter?
I know he's hurt right now, but Andreas Athanasiou, I think,
Yes, oh, for sure.
watching him in, like, I watched him a lot in London play, and he's just kind of like, man, his hands. I know that sometimes his game is frustrating, but I think in a scenario like that, he's almost a sure thing.
Yeah. I like those picks. I think I'm gonna go with the safe choice here in Philip Kurashev. I mean, they're kind of the 1-2 punch right now. But I like those two, and I think Tyler Johnson was pretty good in the shootout, like against Vegas and stuff, but I still probably would have picked him like fourth or something. I would use him for sure, just not in that spot. Okay. So Lukas Reichel, because we love talking about Lukas Reichel. Should Lukas Reichel remain on the fourth line after being healthy scratch? That's where he's played. Should you keep him on the fourth line, Hunter?
For now, he should stay on the fourth line. I'd like to see him maybe bump up and get some shifts at center, but I think right now they're just letting him figure out this, like keeping his game simple. He's been playing a lot better in his own end, and I think he's been creating the odd opportunity. But for now, keep him at fourth line.
Gail, should Lukas Reichel stay on the fourth line?
I'm going to go the other route. I'm going to say no. I'm going to say I think he's paid his dues, and he, like you said, has been doing much better. So reward him with a couple games. Put him on that second line again with Gutman and Radish, or even again with Bedard and Kurashev. See how he does.
I'm with you, guys. I'm with you, Gail. I think Lukas Reichel needs to be moved up, and because the Blackhawks need him to be. He already had his games on the fourth line, and that was okay after he was healthy scratch because he needed to kind of ease his way back, kind of work his way back up. But I think they need to kind of let him get back to where he was. Okay, on another lineup note, Anthony Beauvillier got his first goal as a Blackhawk against St. Louis. Should he remain on the top line? Right now, he's playing with Connor Bedard and Philip Kurashev. Gail, should he stay on the first line?
Well, this kind of goes along with the last question, right? And I'm going to say no. He was a fourth liner with Canucks, and I think that that's starting to show. I would try him somewhere else. I think like Donato, when they had Donato up there at the beginning, it's just not the right fit.
Hunter, should Beauvillier stay in the first line?
I talked to a few hockey people who are smarter than me who like watched a lot of Beauvillier, and they say the thing is he's so talented, but it's just, again, it's so frustrating because he can't put it together. And you see it now. He's only got 1 point in 5 games, and his only point was a tip-in goal. I think speaking with Reichel, they might get flipped at some point. I think Richardson wants to keep Beauvillier on the top line and give him some opportunity, but I don't think it's a long-term solution.
Yeah, I'm not thinking it's a long-term solution either. I like the idea, and I hope he honestly kind of figures it out there once he kind of acclimates more to the team. But I also think he should play with Lukas Reichel too. I think we talked about this before. Like, put them together. Anthony Beauvillier's got experience playing with all types of players. Like, just let's see if that works, maybe. Next one. So Connor Bedard faces Connor McDavid for the first time on Tuesday. What are you keeping an eye out for? Hunter?
I just want to see how similar their games are when they're on the ice together. And also, too, I'm curious, the Oilers are going to have last change. I'd like to see if Richardson just puts Bedard out right against McDavid on every shift as like a challenge to see, okay, you're a first-line center, and you're probably already one of the better two-way players on the team. Let's see how you do against maybe the closest thing to a video game we've ever seen in the history of the NHL.
Gail, what are you looking for with the McDavid and Bedard matchup?
Hunter, that is some good incentive to stay up until 9 p.m. because that's what time the game airs here in Chicago. But yeah, it's like the present best and the up and coming best colliding, and I honestly don't think that Bedard's going to be intimidating. It's going to be a fun game to watch.
Yep, I'm looking at that too, just up in the ante. I think it was even wrote today in an article from someone about how they're just going to make each other better. So I'm excited for that. Okay. last question of the shootout. So obviously we just said they play the Edmonton Oilers on Tuesday, the Seattle Kraken on Thursday, and the Vancouver Canucks on Sunday. And obviously we're going to be staying up late for the Oilers and Kraken game, but we got it here. We got it, guys. So Hunter actually predicted correctly last week in points. He said 5. And they did. So what are your point predictions this week? Hunter, how many points are they getting against the Oilers, the Kraken, and Canucks?
I think they're going to shock the Oilers. The Oilers have won 8 straight. I think they're going to beat them. The Kraken have lost 7 straight. They're terrible. I think they're going to beat them. And then I think the Canucks will probably beat them like 4-1. So 4 points for me this week.
Gail, what's your prediction here?
I went 4 points also, but I guess I was thinking that they would beat the Canucks and not beat the Kraken. Who knows? We'll see. 4 points.
Okay. So I'm going to go with 2 points against the Kraken just because I do not trust them. I do not trust the Blackhawks they usually beat teams they should or sometimes or shouldn't, and then sometimes lose to teams they shouldn't. I don't know. I really can't gauge it. So I'm just going to go 2 points, but I hope they surprise me. All right. So that will conclude this episode of Blackhawks Roundtable. Thank you, Hunter and Gail, for joining me today and talking about a better week. So I'm grateful for that. We're grateful for that. So, and thank you to everyone for listening. Please be sure to comment to me, Hunter, and Gail, your thoughts on this episode about Crevier, about Vlasic, who you would pick in the shootout, about Beauvillier. We honestly want to hear your thoughts on everything. So, and you can be sure to follow all of our articles at thehockeywriters.com. You can follow us on Twitter, and please be sure to check out the Hockey Writers and the Blackhawks Substack if you're interested in even more content from either the Blackhawks or any of your other favorite hockey teams. And the link will be in the description. All the links will be in the description below, so you don't have to go looking for it. And like I said, guys, I hope that this upcoming week will be a tough week for them, but for the Blackhawks. But we're hoping we still have a lot of good to talk about next week. So. Yeah, well, like I said, we'll have a lot of late nights too, but we're excited for it. So thank you guys again, and we'll see you guys next week, and go Hawks.
Hawks.